Sup everyone. This is the final video of the three-part series on this platform I've discovered for myself. I'm using Your Local Painting. It has quite a bit of significance to me. There's a first video on there. If you want to you should probably take a look at that first just to give you some context. And then there was a posting. The first post was to my Facebook. That's just a format that's always been familiar to me, like it has my roots. So Facebook was a comfortable format, and it was of the three stages, it was a comfortable situation but a difficult topic to talk about. That's mental health. And if you look at brain injuries, they talk about like a missing piece, like a puzzle, and that has a lot of significance to me. And if you look at the second attempt of day two of the social experiment, I tried to relay a simple message, the simplest message of the three messages I'm going to share, on a platform that is completely opposite to my point of view. So in doing that, I realized just how introverted I am, and I'm attracted to extroverts because it gives me that thing that I don't have. Like if you're 100% extroverted, as long as your openness, like as long as you have that openness, and for me, like faith over worry is the title of the first video. It's about 25 minutes. So if you're with me so far on this journey, that means that you may be, so it's mostly for men that are, and boys that are like 13, I'd say, is kind of the target audience for that. So you kind of need one or the other to get to this video. So this video is going to be shared on a platform which I'm going to share on my Facebook, and they'll have to kind of put the steps together, like the three steps in whatever sense makes sense to them, and come up with their own conclusions. And the message really isn't for most people. Like I talk about mathematics and percentages, and how there's like one at like 8% or whatever, and it's just fitting because the situation I'm in. Like I didn't really talk much about it because, like, if you want to know more, ask, and that's why this is an open platform to reach out to me. Like I said, like Facebook, Caleb Murphy, or this platform, which is just going to be Caleb Murphy. Like it's not going to be something where I sell anything. And I had, like, that's kind of the opposite viewpoint. And like when I talk about the marketing and the social dilemma we're having, it's people are trying to do things that like they're being sold something that's not for them. And step two is definitely not for everyone, and it does really look confusing because it's the opposite. It's why we get frustrated. Like I drove here, and my maps didn't really work as fast as they should or whatever, and it's like traffic in Edmonton. But it's just like you have all those triggers, all those things, because things are changing, like maps are changing, the rules are changing. And if you're an introvert, you find out the rules and you solve the puzzle, like the Rubik's Cube. Like I posted that to my I posted a lot of stuff to my Insta that is misconstrued, and step two just showed me, can give me guidance to what I should shut out of my life. Maybe there's something that's just not right for you, or you're using it in a way that's unhealthy. And for me, that was so just like I talk about step one is becoming a man, like what it took me to become a man. Step two is realizing the things that are holding you back and making you feel like that hurt teenager. So not like before 5, but like 5 to, or sorry, I'd say like after the age of 13, like that kind of no one knows me, no one knows my mind, I'm gonna be misunderstood. Those are the like emo phases. Those are like Good Charlotte, Simple Plan. Like for my, like, I don't know, I have a lot of different people that do care about me in certain ways. Like I had kind of humor as my constant, and life took me kind of in a lot of different places that I didn't really realize. And it's because you have that humor to get through your situation, whatever it is. Um, but other people have their own situations. And that brings me to step number 3. So, finding my platform, coming to my own conclusion based on, so step 1, my background. Step 2 was the steps, like how I think about things. So like you have 7 steps, 12 steps. Everyone has their own steps, but if those steps are backwards, or if those steps are in a different order, which they often are, and there's a reason for that. And if you watch HBO, you should probably, if you're like me, like you're introverted, um, but you're kind of like you just want to figure it out anyways, like you're not just going to stay in your bubble. And I realized engineering was that for me. Like this was supposed to be more of a career discussion. I was going to talk about my next career move, but it's really just to kind of let everything kind of make sense so that I have context to do the next thing that I need to do. And it always changes when you have something when you put something out there. So when I put that out there on my platforms and introduce a new platform to keep the discussion going so that people have all the pieces, it changed how I was going to talk about things and what I was going to talk about. Because like in Westworld, I won't give too much away, but because I want you to come up with your own conclusions for that, but there's basically a puzzle or a game or something. And puzzles and games, I've always been obsessed with them from like a really early age. And because you figure out all the ways that it doesn't work, and then it clicks. And that Westworld is that for me. So it showed me an image that made me understand that it wasn't a pyramid or a 12 step, but it was to look within and realize that puzzle's not for you. And that's really step 2, and that's kind of the last. So I got step 1, I'd say at 25, like, but it was without step 2 or 3. Like it was just, I was able to feel good without outside influence, I'd say, or like it's that vanity. So like the apps that I deleted for now are Instagram and Tinder. And there are people that reached out to me throughout my experiment that they use it in a healthy way. And that's like I have a cousin who's a mom and wife, and like she sells products that are meant to be sold, but there are products that aren't meant to be sold for some people. Like some people, like there are other guys that use it to pull girls, and they're absolute studs, and like that's where they're at their life. And there's girls that they have their life figured out, their self-image figured out, their friends figured out, and Instagram is like a highlight reel for them and a way for them to have fun with their friends. So you can't hate on something that's not meant for you, and that's what you'll really see when you watch Westworld. And the first time I watched it, like I wasn't really interested in it. It's a Western, and I wasn't really, it just was like a Western sci-fi, and it just didn't really appeal to me. But then when I got into it, it's just like, wow, like everything clicks. And then you start explaining consciousness and in a way that makes sense to you, but everyone has their own journey. Like in a perfect world, you'd be in a utopia basically, right? Like no one would have freedom of choice, like everything would be perfect, like there wouldn't be real world consequences. So you need to be missing that one thing, and you need to find that one thing and realize that the thing that you're looking for isn't the thing that you should be focused on. And you find that out by putting yourself in those scary situations. So when you're introverted, you can follow introverted men that like aren't open to a different way of thinking. So they usually go down those rabbit holes that I was talking about, like flat earth, or that women are crazy. And the step, if you think like that, like maybe you need to flip the script and think that like maybe you're crazy, like maybe, and it's not crazy, but it's just maybe if you're worried about being called crazy, it's usually whatever you call the opposite sex or the opposite opinion of you is what you think of yourself. So um, if you think maybe a guy is an asshole or whatever, like maybe you are, like maybe whatever that means to you, like not in, whatever it is, it's like girls wonder why guys aren't interested, and it's because we've seen these narratives play out. We have, some of us have like sisters and mothers, and like they've figured out all the steps that make sense to them, or they figured out life and they became a mother. And so when I talk about my first one, becoming a man, and what becoming a man came to me in the first step, women have their step as well. Like to become, what that means to me is, so you can still be a girl and have kids, and you can still be a boy and have kids, but a woman raises a man, and a woman takes care of girls and boys. Like they have all of those qualities. So maybe, like I might get into some collaborations with different people on Instagram. Like I don't want to do any more video formats. This will be the last one, but I am open to doing collaborations with people that like. I'm wearing a rad shirt, like radiant, abundant, dynamic. Like that means, right? But some people they have, so that's great for them. But some people have it maybe the other way around, right? Like maybe that acronym is different for them. So that's what step 2 is. It's the algorithm of my mind, and it takes a lot of trust and a lot of patience to see step 1 and 2 before trying to understand this one, like without jumping to the conclusion. So I encourage you, if you don't have YouTube or Facebook, maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe that is a trigger for you because of an ex, or because of just a male figure in your life. And same with boys that are not yet men. Like, they're people. Like I said, there's guys using Instagram for good, but there's also the people that fall into, like, I guess skincare is like a big thing. Like that really shows up a lot on my Snapchat. Like, try this new product, this new skincare, like this marketing. That's why you're misunderstood, because you're not rubbing this like $15, $20 product on your face. Maybe the answer is your roots. Like maybe the answer is dirt. Like maybe you just need to rub dirt. Like be open to rubbing dirt on your face. Be open to the completely different thing that you've been being sold. So maybe you're sold pre-workout or testosterone or steroids or whatever, because like the same way that a woman buys clothing and looks at other women, there's a reason for that in marketing. Like it's your ideal self-image. So that's what the whole, that's why it's step number 1 is finding out your self-image, like looking inside. And a lot of people don't like what they see because of the way they see themselves, just based on their upbringing, like their background. So yeah, I'm trying to keep this a little bit like PG-13, so like I won't, but if people want to have kind of a conversation, but there's like different, I'm from northern Alberta, Grand Prairie, so that's where I've been the last 5 years. So I'll put like in notation after or whatever when I upload this, the 12 steps for me for Grand Prairie and the algorithm. And then like people that, like for me, like how things unfolded in Calgary, I realized like why I didn't. So hospitals and it's just a different way of thinking. Like someone in that way of thinking, they see alignment, they see like it just, everything's aligned to them, like they're excited. But it's like the opposite. Like it is really the opposite for certain people. Like they're down a money, like they're a CEO, or there's someone that does have influence though, and like that's the problem with this, is that these introverts, they are very successful in some things because we're going towards a more introverted society, like we're going away from social interaction, and we're blaming things like the sexes, like men only think with a certain body part, or women are crazy, or whatever it is that, whatever excuse you make to yourself for not reaching out, um, that's whatever it is, that's what it manifests with. So um, the conclusion basically is just to keep pushing forward. Reach out to me if you're struggling with something like this as well. It's also, so because if you made it to this far, like you're not offended by me talking about faith and like spirituality and things like that, like things or magic, like, so there's people that agree with like 90% of my viewpoint, but they don't have one thing, like they don't have faith, or they have like the faith but then they're like different on like 50% or whatever. So like going to church, I was going to church for the wrong reasons actually. I was going to find someone that maybe was different, like I wanted to find what I thought was a good girl, but there's no really, like all girls and boys are good. It's just what you decide to, like the road you decide to go on. Like you can be a boy or a girl and just you know, live. I'll use male examples, like play Fortnite, or for me it was Grand Theft Auto. It gave me kind of just this feeling of like, you know, you're this badass, like you're just going around like driving around doing whatever you want and there's no consequences. But the problem um, with those games is that there are no consequences. So what is the point of those games? Um, like when I was after the 5 days in the hospital, like when I went to find my roots again, um, I did certain things just to like kind of reground myself, and just I started with just kind of like laughter and fun and games, because those things that I had to find, like those roots were kind of like the last thing for me to lose before my injury. Um, and if you are like introvert, so I talk about math and science and puzzles and formulas and things like that. Um, so the brain is basically like that. Like the brain has different parts. I believe it's the corpus callosum, or however you say it, but it's your brain stem, and like it's like this long, right? And like sometimes people think with something that's that long, and you have to change that. Like you have to not go with your first instinct and realize that, um, because so many people do go with their first instinct, that's the perception that is like a product of your environment. And it's oh, I wanted to say something about like just a message to um mothers and fathers that are raising boys. um you do have to let them have that, those teen years, like when they, like you can't just be a boy. Like I'm reading these books like Lost Boy Found, and this book about like lost civilizations and things, and kind of like the fall of, um, it's called Germs, Guns, and Steel. Like that's the next book I'm reading, and it's just the context, the social context of everything, because it's like playing that game. Like you can play that game and figure it out for yourself, but to try to find like your true calling, like your true inner peace, you have to apply it in a real world way, based on the time that you're born and the environment that you're born. And it really is a perfect storm. Like um so I'm a so now to give the context of where I'm at, like I'm at West Grove Professional Building, and so my conclusion, like I always knew kind of I needed to get here, but I didn't know how and when and how it was going to happen. And it kept me up at night because there was like so much fear. Like I go to like the Facebook page for like Dr. Lolan, and I would be like, yeah, I don't know about this, and then I'd get on these loops, like these basically different or different perceptions, or they're wrong perceptions, but they're right for some people, but they're wrong for a lot of people. But it's just one person sharing their experience with no context really, and then they're sharing like hurt on their decision. And sometimes people do come to the wrong conclusion. Like sometimes people take a decision away from someone, and when it comes to I'd say like changing anything in your body, um, or even like faith, like you can give. So I'll, I'll allude to my brother's Instagram. Like he has a music page called The Foundation, and I was actually a cementer for a while and on the oil field, and it's just kind of funny like how it comes back, like the foundation. So you have to build that foundation um, first. Like you have to build that foundation before you can really build anything. Like if you just try to build what you see around, like, so for me that manifests itself in possessions. So like my condo, all these things that like I thought would, once I achieved them or once I got them, they would make me happy, but it just further isolates you from who you should be. So you actually have to like lose all your preconceived ideas, lose your misunderstandings, misconceptions, and get rid of those things. So, and it's just like getting rid of those things that aren't serving you. So if it's serving you, like I mentioned that, so buying my truck was like something, it was a purchase for myself, like that I didn't feel worthy of, so that does have meaning to me. But there are things like that have meaning, but they have wrong meaning. Like they're like, yeah, I paid this much for that or whatever. You just have to be open to losing it, and it's not to say that you will lose it, but um, if you're living in disalignment, like if you maybe you're living like a life of alcoholism or drug use or cocaine or whatever, or sex addict, lust is one of the seven deadly sins. Maybe you're living a life like that. You're gonna lose those things anyways, so you might as well see what lesson you can learn from losing them in a healthy way. And the only healthy setting to do that is when you have love. So a further expand like with the foundation. So like I said, everyone's built differently, and you just have to wait to see what they're going to become. So they're not laying that foundation at an early age. Like they're building that curiosity, that their boyhood, I guess you should say, like Peter Pan or whatever. And some people have their childhood taken away from them, and that's really society failing them. So we don't want to let we're a society, we don't want to fail more people by having that, because they need that curiosity, that magic. I speak about, or I post about or try to convey curiosity and magic, but there's also taboo about curiosity, and a lot of that is stubbornness and people that aren't willing to change. So like if you look at Old Testament, if you look at different covenants, so I'll talk about maybe in more depth later the covenant of Abraham and David, and it's just different timing, different ages, different place, and they're crazy examples because they're the examples of the text that was going to withstand over time, right? Like if you see how much something can be misconstrued, like 5 years or 2 years, or when you talk about gender and pronouns and different like language, and people are putting the onus on the other person, like you're like, oh well, it's your fault because you didn't know this. And like people don't know really anything now. Like we don't think critically like we did when we had to look at something that was published, like something that had to go through science and through experiments. um, there there is like curiosity, like there is sometimes where science doesn't have all the answers, and that's because science doesn't apply to every situation. Like my situation here, like the science, and like depending on, like there's just so many things that like, and fears, another analogy I'll use is, let's say like you didn't know what hair your son was gonna have, or you were gonna have when you have a kid, like what kind of hair you could have. And the option was you can have no hair, or you can have the hair you're born with, but there's no other option. So let's say that, yeah, no, I mean, that's not a good example, but let's say that you decided to, okay, well, he's not going to have hair, but then if he would have let it grow out, or if he would have let his beard grow out, or whatever, it was this beautiful thing that like signified his strength, or was like something that women were drawn to, or whatever it was like that, his strength, or whatever, like the story of Samson, like how his hair was his strength, and people feel that, but often people think the wrong things are their strength. They're actually their weaknesses. I thought my thinking was my strength, but it was actually my biggest weakness. And people saw me get to points in my life, and they're like, wow, like, so when I made the first video, and the responses I got, it was like, wow, it was really good. But I just see like how others in my life see me as well. The side that sees the maternal side, like the taking care of, worried about the first video. This side that there was a side that agreed with me, but like didn't, because they didn't have the full context yet. They just, everyone is kind of, there's a lot going on right now, so there's those people that reached out. There was like, the second was probably the most, where it's like, what's going on, because it's like now I'm trying to discover finding out my message in a way that I know how to portray my message. And I also saw like my vanity kick in when I was going to talk about gender and like what I want to do next, but like you can't really always focus on the next thing. Like that also stops you from achieving happiness, especially when you're as introverted as I am. Like you're just gonna keep thinking. Like I got one sleep cycle last night. I this relates to like how introverted men interact with introverted women, and introverted men that are in a different stage, or different understanding, or different skin. So I'm trying to go to bed last night, and my vanity's keeping me up, because I'm thinking of like, wow, like I look back at that video, and I'm really proud, because I'm putting myself out there in that format, and that's why this is the last video. And I won't look at this take. I'm just gonna post it and see kind of what happens. Sorry, I got sidetracked there, but basically I was up all night. I have this meeting that I'm at, like this clinic I'm at, to take off the final bandage, like, and also that comes like showering, and there comes like just trusting your gut of what you have to do, like what's keeping you up at night. And in the middle of that, there was rustling around in the kitchen, so like pots and stuff like that. And so I'm like, or actually first there's a light, right? Like an unexplainable light. Like I'm room 1, and this is like a rooming house, which I didn't expect that I booked. It was kind of marketed and sold to me in a different way, and that's sort of like the cut you get in life sometimes. But it's, what are you gonna do about it? So the light bugged me, and out of like I was just so like just done with. I was like, hey, this is already as high stress situation as possible, and now this light's shining into my room. So that was the light shining in. So I threw like a bunch of sweaters and stuff and tried to block it out. And then so I hear the pan, and my first instinct is like, who is cooking? Like there's rules that there's a lot of rules in this house, and one was like no noise after 10. So on day 1, I slept decently. Day 2, I heard talking in a different language, and it was like a guest, like of the owner of the house. and it's a language that I don't know, and it's the furthest one from, and there's like a lot of tribalism behind that, and a lot of the reason why, like, there's songs that I hear, like Black Skinhead by Kanye West, and there's drums and things like that, and like there's such things as like war drums and sounds that initiate a response in us, and some people know what I'm talking about because they've seen where like just my mood has changed just based on a song. Like there's you have to realize like what that fire, what that trigger, and dig deeper, like why is that. And so i I get up immediately, and I just stare. Like I look in there and I stare, and that's all I did because I was like, he should know the rules. He should. It's 3 in the morning, and I just thought that like people knew my situation because I explained the situation to the host. Like the hosts are two white women, mother and daughter, and that's the picture I saw. So this gives you context to where I'm going next. But so I go back to my room, and I'm just like, I just turn the music up. So I'm upset inwardly, but I'm not expressing it outwardly yet. Still. So I turn music up to the level of where I can't hear the banging of the pots in the kitchen at 3 in the morning. Um, and I just drown it out to try to find that peace, to try to find that yoga, and that soothing, like those nature sounds. And there was a fan in there too. The bed is a little sunken in, and I'm like going through, um, adult circumcision. There's like a lot of like your sleeping and everything is just really hard to do. Like for you to really sleep, like you need everything to be in alignment. So I did what I thought I needed to do to be in alignment. Um, and oh, sorry, at 12 I got a notification saying that my CERB is done. Like I have to resubmit something to go on it. So I'm having a bit of financial stress at around 12. I try to sleep around 10. This happens at 3 in the morning, and then um, I I somehow find that inner peace, and I still sleep, but then I wake up, and oh sorry, yeah. So I wake up and I shower, which is a very difficult process for me. Like I have to cover a certain area and not get it wet, and the shower head has like one really strong setting, and then like it's just a really hard way to clean myself. And um, what I didn't realize, well I did realize, but I didn't realize that would happen when I'm showering, is that the light is on a timer, and these like soaps and stuff, because it's just like a rooming house, so there's only two of us that are actually Airbnb guests. Like it's people that are there all the time, and they're all very similar, like-minded thinking and similar race, everything. And so it's set up for that, and I'm trying to navigate this in the dark and like not get soap in my eyes and like keep everything dry, and it's just a nightmare. But I'm just like, everything that's prepared me from figuring out every way to use different senses when one's gone. So I'm using my sense of touch, which are my roots. um, I'm using body awareness. I'm using like all these things to just figure it out without freaking out, like without panicking. And then I decide, like I reach out, or Cassandra reaches out to me. She's another great woman on Instagram, and she does like a lot of fitness stuff and a lot of like challenges, which is really good with COVID. So if you want to follow her for that, check her out. And so she gave me kind of this, and I'm still thinking of like what I'm going to do, but I'm 8, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to just go, because I'm supposed to come here and take off a bandage or whatever, but I like just figured that out like I just did it because I'm like, well, this is what's going to happen, so I'm going to try it out, because whatever, like it can't be as bad as it is, and if it hurts I'll stop. So I just trusted myself. And then I get a text which is like, I think texting is just become something where I'm most misunderstood. So I get um, a message from the Airbnb guest. So this woman Donna, and it's like giving me this brief of like my music being too loud, and a guest woke up, um, and like I need to sleep with headphones, and like this kind of stuff, and like that my behavior was not okay, and like right now I'm just went through something where my behavior was challenged. So there's that fear there where I was like, oh man, is this guy that was cooking at 3 complaining about the music that I put on? Because he was actually like had the headphones in, like wasn't aware. So what ended up happening was I responded, and I'm like, and for some reason my text went something like, I didn't want to complain, but and I just listed like the bed sunken in, like all these issues, and I just basically listed off all the things I was holding back, but I said I'm not sure if I want to stay here. So for me that's like finding salvation, and salvation, it's it can be misconstrued as like a Christian word, but what salvation means to me is finding room for healing, and room for healing is different from other people, but room for healing for me and for some introverts is to push people away. So finding salvation, I jumped to conclusions and said, yeah, like I just need to leave, basically is what I told her. But I thought there was like a $1,500, because it's a month, so I thought it was a $1,500 financial commitment, and it ended up only actually being $800. So I had because of how pissed I was, I had jumped the gun on like just my monthly expenses for my condo are about $1,500, so that's why I have the number 1,500 in my brain. But my brain pulls at straws sometimes when you're that pissed off and when you're that stressed, and that's kind of what led me to my situation with Darla in Edmonton and me going to court and being a witness. So it plays like a big part of the puzzle in like our judicial system and our court system, and just how everything can just go crazy. So that was the next step. And then so I went to cool off, and like I have to eat in the mornings, and that's another challenge I'm having, because like just the situation. I cooked like a bunch of chicken on day 1, and then some soups, and it's just like your body just like, you had this idea, but now your body's just like, no, I don't want all this like soup and sodium and crap like that. But that's like, when I came here, I kind of just went to the grocery store, and I'm like, hey, like I'm not gonna be able to drive, so I'm just gonna stock up on like quick soups and things like that I can just digest. And so my stomach wasn't really feeling that well, and I ate and did that, and then talking to Cassandra, I kind of found that calm again. And then out of nowhere she calls, and I see that it's her, and I start off just by saying, so the thing that I felt like she'd be worried about the most would be like the financial commitment, which I thought was 1,500 but was less. But I just explained the situation, of how I thought I explained myself and how I was, but I told her like I was getting a surgery. Like I didn't really say like what kind of surgery, and I mean, we don't always share the most intimate parts of ourselves with others, and that's for a good reason. Like they have to go through steps 1, 2, like find love, find peace, love, and understanding, which is all we need to put all the pieces together. So I explained it based on realizing that I didn't explain myself, and the solution was to first understand what she thinks I was going through and then tell her what I was going through. And then I gave her an option, um, like the best case scenario, because what you don't want to do is like you don't want to start an argument, um, because then both sides are going to lose. Even if there is a winner, there's going to be a loser, but both can win. So we decided, like, so I have her number now, and I just told her, like, I'm not sure what my plan is. I might go somewhere, like, I will see, like, what Doc says, and I'll get back to you. And we talked, and, you know, it just, like, really, everything just kind of clicked and made sense. That was the lesson there. Like, the lesson for, like, in video one, like, I write down, I just kind of, like, pray and find my inner peace, like my inner thoughts, and that's all that video was. And then step two is I put those out into the world in the way they're most misunderstood, and then you try to convey like the message in one and two that you just learned, but you convey it the wrong way. And like that is so the topic of masculinity and femininity, like that really runs deep with me. Like I have two sisters and a mother and like a niece and stuff, and so there's different points of view that you really can't give up on, is all I'll say. If you want to heal those relationships, and if you want to like feel that you're not arguing, if you feel like you're arguing, you should with yourself, like you should just find self-love and focus on that. And then if there's still something eating you up inside, like you solve that, and then really find the last thing last, and then put it out in the world. And that's the biggest challenge I have to people watching this. We're at 42 minutes now, so I'll wrap things up, but just put yourself out there in a way that's challenging or difficult to you, in the world, because it will change your thinking, it will change your worldview, and then you'll see different societies, different languages, different people that look different than what they seem on the outside. You'll come to a better understanding. Like she was telling me, this guy, he is a gym goer. Like he is like huge. Like he makes me look like a very small guy. And in Calgary, actually, I was I was considered a physical threat there. Like I didn't really see a lot of strong men in Calgary, and maybe that's because what my idea of a strong man was like Grand Prairie, and like, you know, like just there's so many things like just being a cowboy and like all these things that I learned. But I've lost where I was going with that. But yeah, put yourself out there in a way that's different. And yeah, I hope that really cleared up this 3-part series. I encourage you to, if you do have time, watch Cobra Kai, watch The Social Dilemma, read a book, pick up a book and read it right till the end. Just consume a media or a form of communication that's different than the one that you like grew up with and the one that triggers you, and just find better communication. Oh yeah, sorry, the guy I keep losing so he is apparently like the sweetest guy, she was saying, and like he is often way more like I realize that now, like the guy that I was most like pissed at, that I thought he like I misunderstand him more than he misunderstands me because of him living in Alberta and just the fear that is created for him, and that sort of tribalism. And like connecting with the girl that did make the complaint. So it was the introverted girl who I actually helped figure out the door code. Like she showed up and she was just like, I have no idea what's going on, blah blah blah, like all these things that I had figured out in the 2 days of being there. The guy who owns the place is introverted, like he's an engineer and like great guy, like really good guy. And there's just a misconception that people don't care, and that's not true. It's just they don't have all the facts. We're trying to communicate to them based on fear instead of love. So if yeah, like that's all I'll say about that is I'm extending an olive branch to the introverts out there, and the introverted girls as well. Like this girl kind of put that other piece, that this is for them as well. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Faith over worry. To find your thinking and admit when you're wrong. So Amazing Grace. Yeah, so I will mention songs again. Amazing Grace means a lot to me, and it's like a war thing. It's a veteran thing. Like it's just, if you see another man, if your idea of a man is a manly man, and you see a man cry, that is really the only thing. If you don't have your heart, that's really the only thing that's gonna make you cry, and that's really, I think, other than like my boy and teen angst years, like that's really the only time is when I had a complete disagreement with my father, and like my brother really, like he was there for that and saw that, and how that unfolded, and the relationship and paths it took us to all get back together is incredible. Of what, like, a game of what is like the game, like it's like phone tag, or I played this game before Christmas, and it's like you say something, and then as a team you like try to figure out what to write, like what to draw, and then you show that to the next person, and they draw something that's like completely. So it starts with usually like a long concept, and it becomes like completely different than what it is. So when you have these ideas that become pictures, and people that focus on ideas like introverts, and then people that focus on pictures, or like extrovert, or whatever you want to call it, and then the medias that are attached to that and market to that, and exploit that, you just see that, like, don't fall into don't be like those algorithms. Like, be a different algorithm. Don't exploit people. Like, don't figure someone out and then exploit them. So that might be like, don't stay in a toxic relationship. And it's not that it is toxic, like it's just that it's just not right for the time. But when it fails, try to see why it failed and the other point of view, and try to, like, if you really love the person, try to be friends with them, because that's going to really sharpen your thinking of reverse psychology. Like, you can't learn psychology, like I could talk about kind of, I think I'll talk about my education career later. If you have questions, if you know about College Pro, your local painting, like all that stuff, how everything ties together. It's not random. Like the way I put these videos together is not random. Like, there is a reason why I don't give everyone all the information. It's because that's the only way you really learn. Like, you have to have some blanks, and I learned that studying for this life course, which like I don't know if it's even for me really, but it's got a lot of blanks. Like, I'm cheap, so I didn't buy this study material, and there's just a lot of stuff that you just have to trial and error and trust and figure out. And like, if I just give you all the blanks, you'll come to the wrong conclusions. So you have to find those blanks for yourself and find out what that means to you. So peace and love, everyone. Take care.